sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. My name is Virginia Jones. I'm a stand-up comic, and my sister's a therapist.
Hello, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
This podcast came about because I pick up things from Laura and I give people bad therapeutic advice. Some of it is good, but some of it is bad because I'm not a therapist. And the excuse I always give is, well, I'm not a therapist, but my sister's a therapist.
You know, it's interesting. I actually met a woman this weekend whose mother was a Freudian analyst. And so she was telling me that she actually was kind of a therapist by the time she was in short pants. She had been so immersed in these ideas. So some people, I guess, she could start a podcast called My Mother's a Therapist. And it also completely guided her career.
Field to specialize in. Yeah.
Right. Because she ended up, now she's a therapist.
Oddly enough. So on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues. We talk about things happening in the popular culture. We talk about, most importantly, like what's on TikTok. And we just come at it from our perspectives of comedian and therapist, who I would say we do agree on most things, but we also,
And I think also we have another unique thing, which is that we were born and raised in the same family, which I think makes a difference.
Dysfunctional family.
Same wildly dysfunctional family. And it's manifested in interesting ways for us career-wise.
Many different ways. So, Laura, what are we talking about today?
So, speaking of manifesting, we're going to talk about manifesting today.
We're going to manifest a podcast about manifesting.
Exactly. So, as I said, I went to a professional training this week, and the person guiding the group, the teacher, I guess we'll call him, was a boomer. And he was making a lot of references to manifestation. And it was really kicked up a lot of feelings for me. I really struggle. So I'm just going to start out with a quote from him. Mm-hmm. It's our given right to be joyful, happy, healthy, and prosperous. What do you make of that?
Well, the first thing that jumps out at me is that you're saying that it's your right to be healthy. Mm-hmm. It leads to
your right to be happy. And it's also your right to be prosperous. Okay.
Right. But it's like, there's people who aren't healthy who didn't choose that.
No, they did. See, that's the thing.
They did because they're
so you've kind of called out my biggest issue with manifestation. Okay. And also, I think the way that we do manifestation, it is rooted in white supremacy. It's rooted in patriarchy. It goes back to all the things that I hate. So there was a quote that I found an article and it said, write down the words, I'm open to receiving and fill in the blank, rinse and repeat 10 times, stretch out for at least 10. It's a simple issue of alignment that blocks you from what you want. Consciously opening your mind allows the magic to pour in.
Wow, the magic. It's on the prosperous tip. It is a bit rich because the people who you really hear talk about manifesting are upper middle class white women.
Yes. Again, I do feel like it was very popular with the boomers because I think their mentality is I deserve to have wealth. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to have prosperity. So if I'm not having those things, it is simply because of my mind.
Well, and on the prosperity point, and I think we've shared this before, but you and I were raised Latter-day Saints, right? We were raised Mormon, LDS.
I don't think we have said this before on here.
No, we were raised in a cult, one of your bigger cults.
Yeah.
But raised in the cult, and idea that goes around in, I think, many religious sects. That's with the sects, S-E-C-T-S. Yeah. Many religious sects have the thing of like, well, you're going to make money because God wants you to.
Right. It's like, giving Joel Osteen.
It's very much giving a Joel Osteen.
Prosperity religious beliefs. But again, what is Joel Osteen? Joel Osteen is a white, well-to-do man who he has the same foundational belief as my teacher did. My instructor. I'm going to call him my instructor.
Everything comes to me. I observe, that's manifestation as a concept is something that one served them and it corroborates their own belief about themselves.
Right. Exactly. So I do think my other biggest issue with, it's appropriation. It's something that privileged white people have appropriated from other cultures, because Mandira Gowda said, despite blowing up in popularity, manifestation has been mentioned throughout history in numerous different cultures, including Buddhism and Christianity. Yet, when it comes to modern practices, many of its attributes can be accredited to Hinduism, the world's oldest faith or religion. So the thing that's interesting about the 2001 kind of version is that it's acting as if it's not rooted in Christianity or any faith. It's just energy, I guess. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you kind of like scan about, like, so Oprah got super into manifestation, which is, I think, where a lot of your white women got into it.
Oprah before she was canceled, when she was the only likable billionaire, that now she's lost the crown on that one.
Right. Because she only gave $100 million to charity.
10.
That's not giving it cover everybody's juice boxes.
I mean, $10 million from Oprah is like pennies.
That's a whole other thing. Anyway, so there's elements, I think that what's so attractive, pervasive about manifestation is I think that there are elements that are valid. Like, I think it's helpful to visualize things that you want, things that you want to happen. I think it's helpful to spend time thinking about things that you want to happen. Like, if you have a goal to walk on the moon and every day you do a little bit something towards that, you're going to be more likely to get there. However, the part where it's a magic part, where your mystical vibrations start to resonate, the wealth and success vibrations of the universe, that's where I have to get off.
That's where you get off the train. So, okay. So Mark Manson is a writer and he agrees with you.
I read his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving and it's very good.
Yes, that's right. He did write that. So in an article, he talks about The Secret. The Secret, in case you are maybe younger than 40.
Right. Or living under a rock. Or living.
I think if you were, my son doesn't know anything about The Secret. So The Secret was produced, I guess, in 2001, I think is when it came out. And it sold 35 million copies, million copies. So Mark Manson says, what is The Secret? The secret is simply the law of attraction. Essentially, the law of attraction states that whatever consumes your thoughts is what you will eventually get in life. So if you think about all the things you don't want in your life, you're only getting the things you don't want. The law of attraction is actually just a candied up version of an old psychological concept called the confirmation bias. The confirmation bias is well studied and researched, and people have known about it for decades. It also makes a hell of a lot more sense than the thoughts as vibrations theory.
Right. You're thinking about something, and then when that finishes, you're like, oh, wow.
I made that happen. I brought it into, I used and I do agree with confirmation bias. Like, I remember I did a thought experiment about, I was looking for forest green colored cars. And I thought, I'm just going to look for them and see if I start seeing more of them when I'm actively looking for them. And guess what? I did. Because when we're actively looking for a thing, we do, because there's so much data coming into our brains all day long. We have to filter it. And so, I think if you're not looking for something, you probably won't see it, but that's not the same as magic pouring into my life.
Well, and like everyone's had the confirmation, but like you've had a dream and then that dream comes, like something happens and it's already in your brain and you're like, oh my God, I'm a psychic. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Like,
maybe you are. You never know.
I dreamt about Salvador Dali dying the day before it happened. Did it have to do with the fact that he was an 80-something Spaniard who was not in good health? Maybe. But the toxic side of manifestation as a concept is, of course, and we talked about this when The Secret was popular, that if you don't get the things you want, if you aren't successful, it is because you weren't trying hard enough. Like you weren't doing it the right way. And that's where we get into the white supremacy thing, because it's like a white woman in her ideal body shape, with a certain amount of money, like a certain background, who starts wishing that she had a yoga studio every day, is going to get to that goal a lot faster than someone on a lower socioeconomic scale. Like she has more opportunities, resources, friends, like she has other things that can lead into this.
Right.
And that's not to say like that, the 15-year-old Hispanic kid who wishes for a yoga studio every day, like,
they're not positive enough.
They're not positive enough. They're just dwelling on negativity, negative thoughts. Yeah.
So Dave Chappelle, your friend and mine, he had a comedy routine that I really enjoyed. It came out like when The Secret came out. And I'm just going to quote it. This woman says the secret to life is positive imagery. You got to visualize the things that are going to happen in your life. Like, chick, that's the secret of life to you? Fly to Africa and tell one of them starving children that.
That's the core of it writ large.
Well, it's speaking of confirmation bias, right? If I'm living in a world where I can just run to the bank and get a million, our friend Donald Trump, he got a very small loan of $1 million to start his own business.
That's all he got, Laura.
That's all he got. He wasn't offered a penny more to open his own business. So he has a confirmation bias that $1 million is a small loan. And so he's thinking, well, I did it. Why can't Joe, the homeless guy, do it? So it's that same privileged mindset. And that is why I have such issue with it. So like, I have a friend who I love dearly, but she has had a very different life experience than mine. And I remember I had a real problem because when I was out in them streets trying to date men, I was swiping for my life on a daily basis.
Dancing as fast as you can.
Exactly. And I was netting a lot of really, really gross and unpleasant experiences with men. And she, a woman who had been married for 20 years, had not been single at all in this phase of dating or anything like that. She just kept saying, you just need to think positively. You need to manifest, the man of your dreams. And if you focus on that enough, then he will arrive.
He'll appear. Yes, because the reality she had in her mind was, well, I was 23 and hyper attractive when I met the man that I married.
I was a size 6 and I was 23.
I was a size 6 and he just showed up. And when you are that person, they will just show up. I have a new... And
also she wasn't dating. And that's the other piece, right? Yeah. Much like Donald Trump doesn't understand Joe, the homeless guy, she doesn't understand what dating in, the twents is looking like. This is a very different atmosphere from...
Never swiped.
Right. She never even looked at that stuff. And she's never been visualized by large swaths of men as a commodity. She went to a small university with, not that many people. And, she probably had her pick of the 15 men that were there.
Speaking of, when I was a new college graduate, been out a couple years, I had a crush on someone and it was a big, life-changing crush because I was in a partnership and this person lived somewhere else. And I read something about if you write down on a piece of paper, the more you want it, the more you write it down.
Right.
So I did that. And then magically, a year later, I was in Portland dating this person. But it's guess what? He already liked me.
No, it was because of the paper.
It could have been because I never mentioned to him the paper. And it's very funny for me to think about it now. Yeah, he was. He had
already determined that you were attractive enough to date, and he had already thought you were smart enough to date. And yes. And so it's very easy. I guess that's the issue. With Oprah, because the big TikTok that's going around now with Oprah is that someone asked her the question, why do you think Americans are struggling so much emotionally right now? And she said, I just think they're jealous. And they need to really work on not being so jealous. It's lady, we're working on not having the potential at all to ever buy property or to pass on wealth to our children. They're making 6 figures and living paycheck to paycheck because the cost of housing is so insane. I can't manifest my way out of that.
Right. There's certain limitations, but that's a rich person problem. And that happens. That happened to Dave Chappelle. You get to a certain amount of prosperity and you just can't relate to the ground, boots problems.
On the ground people.
Boots on the ground. Everyone becomes like Marie Antoinette, well, why don't they eat the cake they have? But I am working on a joke. It's based on...
I believe the exact quote is, let them eat cake.
What are they doing with all that cake? What you doing out there? 2 cheeks caked out on a Monday afternoon. Anyway, I'm working on a new bit about attraction and about confirmation bias and about being attracted to men specifically.
Okay.
Because I think it's like being a starving person, but all you want to eat is mushrooms.
Right.
You have to pick them yourself. And some of them are going to be toxic. You can't tell by looking, but everyone acts like you can.
Right. Yeah.
So when you keep eating these poison mushrooms, like you're just going to be sick a lot of the time.
Right.
And then everyone around you is like, well, why didn't you pick a different mushroom? I couldn't tell.
I don't have the skill set that offers me the ability to understand that. Sorry, I forgot. I misquoted. The Secret by Rhonda Burns was published in 2006.
So everybody can stop yelling at your phones, at your computers, at your playing devices. She corrected herself. So yeah, rich people like the idea of manifesting, or at least like people who have a base financial security.
Right. So it's, again, it's very easy to sit in my current point of view and tell people things. So I'm going to quote Lydia Sohn. The first time I heard of manifestation was in 2019 as I coasted up California's Highway 5, listening to a podcast with Lacey Phillips, an actor turned manifestation coach. Manifestation, she explained, is the intentional practice of bringing our desires into existence. According to Phillips, the universe collaborates with us to make good things happen. Quote, there's a roadmap to have whatever story I want and to create whatever story I want, she says. I have the autonomy and the power. Where are the flaws in that thinking, do you think?
Well, like in what way is that not religion? Right?
It's not, honestly, it's giving I've read a lot of children's books over the last several years because I live with a child. It's giving magical realism.
Magical thinking. The term is magical thinking.
Yes.
And it's a real thing. And like magical thinking.
It's fantasy thinking,
it's fantasy. But like magical thinking can be if I write this down on a piece of paper and I burn it and I like think about it a lot, it will happen. But it can also be if I tap the kitchen counter 15 times, the Mets will win. And that's also OCD.
That's OCD, yeah. Obsessed. For the listeners, that's obsessive compulsive disorder.
But I think humans are wired to find patterns. And I think that's part of the attraction of the manifestation idea, because we love to have our biases confirmed. We love it.
Right.
We love predicting something and having it happen, or wanting something and having it happen. But yeah, when you get into the, like, you just need the universe to vibrate on your frequency, and then someone's going to give you a Porsche, like that gets into the really, hippy dippy crap, but like
toxic, but like thinking is what that
it's
is.
Toxic. Well, I have a friend who is a really interesting person, but also super mentally ill, I would say. But her take on
again, is this your friend? Then the answer is absolutely suffers from.
Absolutely suffers some sort of mental problem. But her take on manifestation, I joke that I spend money like I think it's going to go bad.
Right.
She told me, if you're feeling broke, you're coming from a scarcity mindset. And so her solve was spend all your money.
Well, that does really tie into capitalism. Because that's another religion that we're all involved in.
She was like, anytime I've worried about money, I just spend everything I have. And then the universe brings me more money. Because like I'm creating a vacuum that like money just falls into. I'm like, I have also been broke, and it does not work that way. I just sit around and think, who owes me money? Or is there anybody who hasn't paid me yet?
Oh, you thought about it, and then you manifested that money by sending a Venmo request. So again, it's all giving. I think, to me, one of my theories is that manifestation has caught on so wildly because of the drop in Christianity in America. So
we want to fill that hole.
Christianity, the percentage of people belonging to some form of Christianity decreased from 52.2% in the 2016 census to 43.9% in the 2021. It is a huge drop. And Google Trends revealed that searches for manifestation peaked during the summer of 2020. Do you remember anything weird happening during that summer?
Let's see. It was the second Trolls movie came out.
That's true. It was available to stream for $20, which was a complete ripoff, but we couldn't go to theaters. Why couldn't we go to theaters, do you think?
Oh, COVID-19.
Got it. Yes. So,
right.
So in 2020, manifestation peaked as a Google search because we didn't have any vaccines yet. Financial market was unpredictable. Schools were at a loss as what they were going to do. And of course, people wanted to learn how to create a better reality than the one that they were currently trapped in.
Right. The fifth or sixth time you said manifestation, it actually brought to mind a very capitalist American concept, manifest destiny, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, it has its roots in Christianity. It's the same thing.
Right. And like, so when we were in high school, the way I remember being taught manifest destiny is, well, a lot of Europeans came to America and they kind of settled on the East Coast, but then they were motivated by manifest destiny, this idea that the country was theirs for the taking.
Right.
And that's what led to settlers traveling across the West and establishing Utah and California. But like as an adult, you're like, oh, this is just a thing justify just murdering people. Like, well, I mean, we're manifesting our destiny and you people are on the land that God wants us to have.
Well, and like all things natural, this leads me back to a TikTok. So it was about manifest destiny and its roots in Christianity. And they were talking about the different kinds of Christians and how they had to kind of change up the belief system to make it okay to steal people's swaths of land and murder people and kidnap people and, force them to be your slaves and stuff. But they were talking about the Mormons really struggled because they had that theory that Native Americans were descendants.
The original. Yeah, right. They were descendants of
the Jewish people. That Native Americans were Jewish descendants, right? And so the theory of manifest destiny doesn't work because they're not these heathens. But so what they had to create this other line, or when I say they, I mean one crazed lunatic, Joseph Smith. Right. He had to make up the story about the Lamanites and the Nephites. Mm-hmm. And the Nephites were the white Jewish people, and the Lamanites were the dark-skinned Jewish people. And they were dark-skinned because they had sinned. And so it's okay for us to murder them and steal their land. And
I don't know if you know how much Native American murdering the Mormon Church did, but it was a lot.
Quite a bit. I mean, I would say any person who came to America that's not from here did a lot of murdering, I think. Inadvertently and planned. There was a lot of that going premeditated. Yes. Okay. So yes, we've got the pox blankets, which was a quote unquote an accident. But yeah, I mean, I think that any person who came here at the beginning probably killed a lot of people who were already here.
In Jon Krakauer's Under the Banner of Heaven, which deals with not only the Mormon murders that happened in the 1980s, but the history of murder in the Mormon Church, a big thing that they would do is like if they
shouldn't you be saying we? I'm still on the books. I don't know about you.
Yeah, we're still on the books. I don't know if you guys know this. Apparently, in order to get off the Mormon registry, you have to petition for excommunication.
And part of said excommunication is revoking all of your prayers and baptism. And I'm not willing to do that. That's mine to keep.
Not only would Mormons kill Native Americans who came in their path, but if they wanted to kill a local, like it's documented that they would kill a person and then blame it on the Native Americans who then would be killed. So that's how you manifest that destiny, brother.
Yeah. So it's all good. AG, great stuff. So yeah. So let's circle back to Mark Manson. He said a point that I would like to talk about. The secret actually requires that you never doubt yourself, that you never consider negative repercussions, and you never indulge in negative thoughts. This is a confirmation bias on steroids, and it can be dangerous. Taking on risky business adventures or investments, ignoring red flag behaviors from a romantic partner, denying personal problems or health issues, avoiding necessary confrontations, failing to weigh the possibility of failure in decision-making, and so on. While this sort of delusional positivity thinking may make one feel better, in some or even many situations as a long-term life strategy, it is utterly disastrous.
Well, and this brings to mind the idea of like self-blaming. Like in Christianity, there's always the idea like when they call it prayer, but it's wishing.
It's wishing with your eyes closed
to a God that is not real. So, but if in Christianity, many times, if you pray for something and it doesn't happen, you are informed it's because you're not doing a good enough job. Like you're not a good enough Christian. And it's like the same thing in kind of a different language that like, if you haven't believed hard enough, that you can walk on the moon or be the president of Texaco or whatever it is, you're able to blame yourself. And people love to blame themselves.
Right. There's a very good book by Barbara Erenreich, Bright-Sided. And it's all about how in America, we have created this sort of pocket of just depression because we're sitting there going, I'm being positive. I'm saying the right things. I'm putting my thinking cap on right, and things aren't working out for me. So now what?
Right.
And I also am not allowed to ever have a negative thought, which is impossible. It's impossible to not have negative thoughts. I really do think, like, honestly, I think that being human, a big part of our survival strategies was being inherently negative, right? And assuming the worst. I think that that's why we're still alive. And unfortunately, it does bum us out a lot. But I do think it's a really important, I mean, yeah, what do you make of that? Like the idea that like, I'm not ever allowed to have a bad thought, or I'm not ever allowed to feel badly about something.
I mean, isn't that all of Christianity?
Yeah.
That's what makes religion work.
Right.
Is you set up an unattainable goal. And then when people don't attain it, it's their fault.
Right.
Like in Mormonism, like, yeah, very much that idea of like positivity and family and helping each other. And there were all these, you know, I'm sure every religion has this, but like there were definitely like super high requirements of being a good Mormon woman.
Right.
And never ever argues with her husband. Always keeps.
And never ever complains. I remember that.
Never ever complains
because our mom was really pretty bad Mormon because she did complain a lot.
Right. She was good at some things like having a ton of children, very good at that, but really fell apart on some of the other things. And also what a weird thing in the theology that most of you guys know, that the reason Mormons have a lot of children is that there's this finite well of souls.
Right.
That we have to empty before the end times, right?
I think a lot of that is also based in white supremacy, because I remember,
yes, for sure.
I remember saying to our mom, hey, I think you're lying when you say that you planned 5 pregnancies. Like, that sounds crazy. Why would that be? And she said she used to go to these meetings, and I can't remember the name of them, but there was these weekly meetings, and every week, basically, they would be pressured by other women to have more babies. One of the strategies was to say, if you don't have this baby, then this soul is going to be born to an African child who doesn't have any food. Yes.
Wow.
So it's white supremacy. Everything in America circles back to white supremacy, I think. I really do.
But also, it also comes down to women are at fault. Like, it's your responsibility to release these souls, to have them live out their destiny on earth. And so that potentially they can become Mormon. Because like Joseph Smith made up the Mormon religion.
He did not make it up. He found a pair of glasses that were made of gold. And he went into a wooded area.
And he dug in.
It all happened. And if you say anything about it, you're a problem. You're the problem.
So his first draft of Mormonism from the golden plates found in the Hill of Cumorah and like I saw the name of the mount on a map, and it really like sent a chill. I'm like, oh, it's a real place.
That's real? Yeah, because it's all set in America, because that's what Mormonism is. It's an American-based religion, which is super weird also.
So he kind of messed up. He said, in order to go to the best heaven, celestial heaven, you have to have been a Mormon on earth. You have to have been baptized in the religion. And then people immediately said, okay, so nobody born before 1845 is more, like no one even has a shot.
Yeah.
And so that's when this idea of like baptism of the dead, and like he had to find other ways, and like the idea of like the well of souls, I think, was another way of like, we just got to make all the Mormons we can,
because I'm making this up as I go.
That's
the beauty of I mean, it was like the show Lost, you know. Mm-hmm. All the twists and turns, because they were making it up as they went along. And I think they were actually better writers than Joseph Smith.
Yeah, almost anyone is. I do think there's elements of the manifestation thing. So again, I think it's important to visualize your goals. I think it's important to work through your goals. I'm going to tie representation into this.
Right.
I think that, you know, we talk about representation in films and television, but it's so important everywhere.
Right.
Because if you've never ever seen like a Black woman doctor it's hard to imagine that it could exist.
It's a possibility, right?
That is a possibility for you. So I think that that's also a positive aspect of this mindset of like putting a possibility in your mind that you can go forward with.
And create, I mean, I think if we looked at, instead of calling it manifestation, if we just called it creating your own confirmation biases that work for you, I mean, that is doable. It's easy for me to look for green cars. It doesn't cost me anything. I can do it and I can see, oh, well, now I know that green cars actually are kind of a lot more than I thought.
They're a lot more common than you think. Or like in college, I think someone said to me, oh, if you see more than 3 white cars together, it's a conspiracy, like it's a government.
It's a blip in the matrix also.
It's a blip in the matrix. And then you start seeing 3 white cars together all the time.
So yeah, if you use it in a way that is supportive of your brain, I think that's a good thing, right? If I am actively looking for Black women in this country who have started a small business and have been successful because I'm a Black woman who wants to start a small business, I think that's a great thing. It's where we start getting into the magical thinking part that I struggle with, because number one, there's not access. No matter what boomer white people say, there is not access to a lot of things to a lot of people. Again, referring back to this Atlantic article by Lydia Sohn, she said, there are dangers to the manifestation worldview. Believing that we are primarily responsible for our own life circumstances leads to 2 insidious lines of thinking. First, it propels us to judge one another and ourselves. And instead of extending compassion, like he's poor because he's lazy, she died young because she was irresponsible. These are sentiments I've heard others express. We also judge ourselves as if we could have prevented bad things from happening to us. So like that idea of preventing bad things from happening to us is giving codependency. So I have a handout that I give out to clients called Getting a Grip on Guilt. And 3 of the quotes from this are, I'm responsible for things that I don't cause. I can prevent bad things from happening. And these things, lead to introspection and self-analysis that is excessive. Have you ever done that before? Have you ever thought that you are responsible for things that you don't cause and that you can prevent bad things from happening by your thinking?
For sure. That's like my whole childhood, I think, is blaming myself for things that were happening around me that in retrospect, I had no ability to change.
Right. And where do you think that came from? Where do you think those ideas that you were responsible for things you didn't cause, where do you think those came from?
Jesus?
No, they came from your parents. Actually, probably, I'm sure Mormonism played a role because
something to do, yeah.
Because I feel like they're constantly, I mean, it was very much like, I'm saying it like it's not a religion anymore. For me, it was very much like Catholicism, because there's a lot of this kind of like, okay, you have to be super positive and happy. And also, you need to self-flagellate 50 times if you have a bad thought or think something poorly about your neighbor or whatever it is.
Well, the toxic positivity of Mormonism, again, setting a goal that no one can achieve,
right,
is also, we, in our circle, knew a lot of extremely abusive things happening in families behind closed doors. Right. Because when you spread this like sunshiny bullshit over the top,
right,
you can hide a lot of flaws.
If I have to pretend that nothing bad is ever happening, then it's actually a really, so for all those abusers and narcissists out there, you should probably join the Mormon religion, because you will be probably set for life. It's pretty solid.
Or if you truly, truly have narcissistic personality disorder, what you ought to do is start a cult.
Yes.
And, kind of perfect upon, like, fix some of the problems of Mormonism and really just get into it. But again, I do agree with positive visualization. I agree that you can form like neuron paths in your brain to
neural networks.
Well, that's why one of us is a therapist and one of us is a comedian. But yeah, I think that you can look for positive things. I think you can like try to, count your blessings, as cheesy as that sounds, because if you find negative things, you can definitely carve those negative neural pathways into stone.
Yes. Yeah. I'm also a big fan of gratitude, because again, I think that when we put our time and attention and energy towards gratitude for the things that we have, then we're much more likely to look for that in our daily life. And I do really feel like ultimately all these things come back to just building new neural pathways and new neural networks.
Well, and then we come back to confirmation bias. We like to see good things happen that we have predicted. We, like that gives us pleasure. This isn't really topical, but I think that, so in Los Angeles, sometimes you'll see a celebrity,
Right.
and it's very exciting. Friday night, I was at a show, and David J., who is a musician from Bauhaus and Love and Rockets, came and sat next to me, and I did not know what to do with myself. Like, I was so excited, but it's not really like, I think that part of the excitement is because your brain likes recognizing things and people. Like, it's not even like, oh, I think that sitting next to David J. is going to change my life. It's just like, it's pleasurable. And you think, like, your brain thinks of them as a friend or someone you know. Like, that happens to actors all the time. Like, oh, I feel like I know you. Right. Because your brain has put that image in, like, eaten it and loves to see it again.
Right. And actually, speaking as a celebrity, I don't know if you know this, but I am kind of a celebrity. I'm kind of a big deal.
I was recognized at the gay bar once.
Well, I was recognized at my office many times because there was a period, there was a local news program had run, and I did an interview with them. And it, obviously, I'm kind of a big deal for people who are watching the news that week. But I don't know, 6 months or something, there would be people coming into the building to, book an appointment or whatever. And they would see me and their eyes would kind of like light up. Like, oh, I know that person. But it was very weird. And I thought, oh my God, this is what I did to Tim Robbins. And this is this is what I did to Jack Black. Like, it reminds me, it takes me back to, hey, you, I know you. I know you.
I know you. You're not angry at him. You're just pointing at him.
What is that from? It was like an old SNL skit or something.
From Men's Synchronized Swimming. Maybe it was SNL, but because Martin Short was in it.
Yes. Hey, you. So I think that's what we're doing to these people. Yeah. All day long. And they're just trying to live their lives.
But yes, this is how, we think we're so smart, but this is just how our little animal brains are wired.
Right.
And so I want to make wired to seek pleasure. We're wired for confirmation bias. We are wired to believe in a religion and to make up these weird stories that if someone doesn't have as much as you, it's their fault.
Right. And I think it's, I think manifestation has just become the new Christianity. Yeah. So yeah, circling back to the brain, Mark Manson said something that I think is really important. He was talking about this prescription for delusionally positive thinking can have really negative consequences for people. Psychological research shows that trying to suppress thoughts about something only makes those thoughts more likely to occur. In fact, rumination and obsession appear to operate in this manner, especially with people with chronic mental illness like OCD, depression, and anxiety. So the more that this is the tough part, is when I have this toxic positivity, the more that I'm trying to get rid of these unwanted thoughts, the more likely that they're going to dominate my mental space. So
I hope that that's clear as molasses for everyone.
Yes. And Virginia, as we're wrapping up, I know this was my topic. So what are your takeaways from our convo today?
When someone says to you, if you believe in this, this will happen, take it with a grain of salt, maybe even a handful of salt. When something is being sold to you as a function of the universe, that the person who's telling you that, it's something that has served them. It's a belief that has served them.
Right.
And why is that?
Right. I think ultimately, when we get too far down the manifestation rabbit hole, what it really is, thought suppression and delusional thinking. Right. And both of those things are really not healthy for people.
Thanks to everybody who's listening today. Laura, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me at my website, lauraryan.org. They can also find me on the TikTok. I am Laura Ryan. And how about you, Virginia? Where can we find you?
Well, my TikTok is BADINIA, Badinia. And that is also my website with my calendar on it. That's all of my social medias. If you want to write us a letter, ask us an
electronic mail.
An electronic mail, an electronic message. You can send it to hello@mysistersatherapist.com if you have any thoughts on our topics, if you have anything you'd like us to talk about, if you have any questions, or if you just want to tell us nice things. Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe on whatever podcast format you're listening to. Please give us a positive review. If one comes to mind, give us 5 stars.
Just like us. Please like us.
Just like us. That's all we want. That's all we ever wanted.
That's all we wanted.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Have a great week.